I never thought I would find myself in this situation. My husband and I had what seemed like a perfect marriage, no major problems, a beautiful daughter, and a happy home. But everything changed in an instant. Yesterday, after a long day of cooking and caring for our daughter, I was backhanded across the mouth by my husband, something completely out of character for him. I was left in shock and confusion, wondering how things could have escalated so quickly. Now, I'm left questioning what to do next and how to protect my daughter from the chaos I never saw coming. My husband and I have been married since February 2020, and we often joked that we had perfect timing, especially since we beat COVID and got married before the pandemic hit. So many of my friends struggled with their relationships during those months. Fights, breakups, distancing, but we seemed to sail through it all. Everything was falling into place for us, or so I thought. I stay home with our 7-month-old daughter while my husband works in management for an up-and-coming company. He's often gone for 9 to 10 hours a day, and I do most of the housework. It's a role I'm comfortable with, and for the most part, it hasn't been a burden. I love spending time with our daughter, and I don't mind taking care of the house. It feels like my responsibility, and I enjoy the sense of accomplishment it gives me. We'd been in a really good place in our marriage. Sure, things weren't always perfect, but they were manageable. We'd been through a lot before, especially with 2 difficult pregnancies, postpartum depression, and a lot of fighting, but I had always believed in us. After our second baby was born, we decided to go to therapy to work through the challenges, and it seemed to help. Over time, I noticed changes in my husband. He started paying more attention to me, affectionately, without expecting anything in return. He would bring home flowers just because, help around the house without me asking, and plan date nights, something we hadn't done in years. It felt like we were in the honeymoon phase again. For the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely seen and appreciated. We were connecting on a deeper level, and I began to feel more desired. The old issues seemed to fade, and I thought the therapy had worked wonders for us. My libido returned, and I started to believe that things were finally back to normal, or at least on the right track. But then, everything started to shift unexpectedly. A few days ago, I had spent the day cooking and baking, but I hadn't kept up with the dishes as I normally would. The sink started to fill up, and by the time my husband came home from work, I hadn't quite finished cleaning. He mentioned it casually in the morning, but I had assured him I'd take care of it later. In the afternoon, my friend came by for a play date with her child, and the time slipped away from me. We were all having fun, and when she left around 4:30, I immediately got to work on making dinner and finishing up the dishes. By the time my husband came home at 5:30, dinner was just finishing up, and I had about 75% of the dishes done. I left the remaining ones in the sink as I grabbed clean plates to set the table. As I set dinner on the table, he walked in, saw the sink, and said something like, "Couldn't even finish the dishes? What have you been doing all day?" I thought it was just a joke, something he said in passing. We liked to tease each other, and I assumed it was part of that playful back and forth. I responded, "Dinner's ready, and I'd like to eat while it's hot for once in my life." But what happened next was nothing like I had ever expected. Without warning, my husband backhanded me across the mouth, telling me not to disrespect him again. My mind went blank. I couldn't believe what had just happened. This was not the man I knew, the one who had been affectionate, caring, and loving in recent months. I was left standing there, stunned, unsure of what had just occurred. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. What had happened to him? How could this be real? It felt like a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. My heart raced and I felt completely frozen. All I could think was, how did I get here? The slap still echoed in my mind as I stood there, my face stinging, my body frozen. I couldn't move. I just stared at Tom, unable to believe what had just happened. He was standing there, breathing heavily, his face a mixture of anger and something I couldn't read. But all I could focus on was the shock that had washed over me. I had never seen this side of him before. Not once in all our years together. This wasn't a heated argument. This wasn't a moment of frustration. This was something else entirely. I tried to process what had happened, but my mind was a blur. Was he really that angry about the dishes? About something so trivial? No, this didn't make sense. I had never seen him lose control like this. My heart was pounding in my chest, and all I could do was stand there, feeling the weight of his actions sinking in. For a moment, the room was silent. The air was thick with tension, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Was this the beginning of something worse? Was this just a one-time outburst, or was it something I had missed all along? The questions kept flooding my mind, but I couldn't find the words to ask them. Tom didn't speak either. He just stood there, watching me with a strange look in his eyes. It wasn't the warmth and affection I had grown used to over the past few years. It wasn't even guilt. It was something colder, something distant. I finally broke the silence, my voice shaking with confusion and fear. "Why?" I managed to whisper, the word barely escaping my lips. "Why would you do that?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes flickered for a moment, and I could see him struggling with something inside. The apology I had expected never came. Instead, he just muttered, "Don't disrespect me again." That was all he said. The words hung in the air, heavy and final, and I could feel my world starting to crumble around me. This wasn't the man I had fallen in love with. This wasn't the man who had been kind and affectionate, the one who had shown me love and care. What had happened to him? How had we gone from joking about having the perfect marriage to this? I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to run far away from the man standing in front of me. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, my body numb, my mind racing. My thoughts swirled, each one more confusing than the last. Was this a one-time thing, or was it a glimpse of something darker lurking beneath the surface? Tom turned away from me, walking out of the room without another word. I stood frozen, staring at the space where he had been. The house felt empty, the silence unbearable. My daughter was upstairs, blissfully unaware of the tension that had just exploded between us. I had to keep it together, for her sake. But inside, I was falling apart. I sat down on the couch, my hands trembling as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. The slap, his cold words, the complete lack of remorse, nothing made sense. The love I had believed in, the marriage I thought was growing stronger, now seemed like a cruel joke. Had I been blind this whole time? Had I missed something that was always there, hidden beneath the surface? My heart ached for the future I had once imagined with him, for the dreams I thought were within reach. But now I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The man I had trusted with my heart and my daughter's well-being had just shattered everything I thought was real. I had to make a decision, but I couldn't think straight. The pain of the slap was nothing compared to the pain of the betrayal I was just beginning to comprehend. I needed answers, but I was terrified of what I might find. Would this be the beginning of a nightmare, or just a wake-up call I didn't know I needed? The uncertainty loomed large, and I was left to face it all alone. The next few days were a blur of confusion, fear, and disbelief. I couldn't stop replaying the moment in my mind, the slap, his cold words, the look in his eyes. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. The man I thought I knew, the man I had built a life with, had done something I never imagined. I couldn't stop asking myself how we had gotten here, what had gone so terribly wrong. At first, I tried to push it aside, thinking that maybe it had been a one-time outburst, maybe he had been stressed, or maybe it had something to do with the pressure of work, or the new responsibilities we had. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how wrong that line of thinking was. There had to be something deeper beneath the surface. Something I had missed. I needed answers. I couldn't move forward without them. So I began to dig. I went through his phone when he wasn't home, looking for anything that might explain his sudden outburst. Any sign that this was just a temporary moment of weakness. What I found made my blood run cold. At first, it was small things, texts from work, mundane messages about his day, things I had no reason to question. But then I came across a series of messages that sent a chill down my spine. He had been texting his friend, a male coworker, about his frustrations. They weren't about me or our marriage, but about his life in general. That didn't surprise me. What shocked me was the pattern in his conversations. He had been venting about his stress and how he felt trapped in his responsibilities. But there was one message buried deep in the conversation that made me stop dead in my tracks. "I don't know how much more of this I can take. She's not the same anymore. It's all too much." The words were vague enough to be about anything. His job, our life, even me. But something in the way he wrote it made my stomach drop. It wasn't just frustration. It was an admission of something deeper. I couldn't let it go. I spent the next few days obsessing over the texts, rereading every single one, trying to make sense of it. Was he unhappy with me? With our life? Had I somehow caused this? I thought about everything. His mood changes, his increasing irritability, the way he had started pulling away emotionally even when he was physically present. Then one evening, I did something I never thought I would do. I checked his email. He had always kept his passwords and accounts private, which I respected, but I was desperate for answers. I felt like I was losing my mind, and I needed to know what was really going on. As soon as I logged in, I found a string of emails that made my heart pound. They were from a female coworker. The subject lines were innocuous: project update, meeting notes. But when I opened the emails, my stomach twisted. There were flirty comments embedded in them, little jokes about their past interactions, about their shared work travels. Nothing explicit, nothing overt, but it was enough to make my instincts scream. I felt a knot form in my chest. This wasn't just about dirty dishes or stress. There was something else going on, something deeper, and I was beginning to feel like I was at the center of a storm I didn't understand. I didn't know what to do with this information. Should I confront him? Should I wait for more? Every part of me wanted to explode, to scream at him for what I was uncovering, but another part of me was paralyzed by fear. Fear of what I might find if I kept digging. Fear of what this meant for us. Fear of losing everything. As I sat there in the silence, scrolling through the emails, I felt more alone than I ever had. I wasn't sure how much more of this I could take, or what I was supposed to do next. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go on living in the dark. I needed to confront him, and I needed to do it soon. But was I ready for the truth, whatever it might be? I wasn't sure, but the time to find out was quickly approaching. The days after my discovery felt like an endless cycle of dread and confusion. I had so many questions, and yet, every time I thought I was close to an answer, more doubts flooded my mind. I couldn't stop replaying the images of the texts, the emails, and that chilling message about how she's not the same anymore. Was he referring to me? Was he talking about our life together? The more I thought about it, the more unsure I became of everything I thought I knew. I could feel myself slipping into a state of constant anxiety. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything without thinking about the truth that I was desperately trying to uncover. Every interaction with Tom became fraught with tension. When he would come home from work, I would act like everything was normal, but inside, I was a mess. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. Every word, every gesture felt like a lie. I couldn't keep living like this. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Finally, I made the decision. I had to confront him. I couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep living in this suffocating silence. I wasn't sure how he would react, whether he would deny everything or finally come clean, but I knew that I couldn't wait any longer. That evening, when he got home, I didn't greet him with my usual smile. I didn't make small talk. I just looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest, and said, "We need to talk." His face faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered, a nervous smile tugging at his lips. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice slightly shaky. "I know what's been going on," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I've seen the messages, the emails, I know about your conversations with her." His face went white, and for a moment I thought he might collapse. But instead, he stiffened, his jaw tightening as he tried to gather his composure. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice now defensive, though there was an edge of fear in it. I didn't back down. I could feel the truth rushing to the surface, and I wasn't going to let him lie to me any longer. "I know about the texts, Tom. The ones you've been sending her, the flirting, the little comments, and I know about how you've been telling her things about our life, about me. You've been hiding this from me for months, haven't you?" For a long moment he didn't say anything. His eyes darted around the room, clearly searching for an escape. But there was no way out of this. I had already uncovered everything, and he couldn't deny it. Finally, he spoke, his voice strained. "It's not what you think. I never meant for it to go this far. Stop," I interrupted, my voice rising with a mix of anger and hurt. "Stop trying to make excuses, Tom. You've been having an affair. You've been lying to me, and you've been hiding things from me for months. And now, you're standing here trying to pretend like this is just a misunderstanding?" His face softened slightly, but there was no remorse in his eyes, no apology. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said quietly, though I could hear the lie in his voice. "I was frustrated. Things haven't been the same between us for a while." "Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped. "You've been talking to her, confiding in her, getting comfort from her when you should have been talking to me. You've been lying to me for months, and now you think you can just apologize your way out of this?" I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I was also flooded with a sense of clarity. The man I thought I knew was gone. He wasn't the person I had married, the man I had trusted with my life and the life of our child. That man had disappeared, replaced by someone who had betrayed me in the worst way. "Tom, I don't know who you are anymore," I said, my voice breaking, "and I don't think I can ever trust you again. This is over." His face twisted with frustration and guilt, but there was no apology, no real remorse. He was sorry for himself, not for what he had done to me. "I can't lose you," he said, his voice desperate now. "Please, just give me a chance to make things right." But I had already made up my mind. I had already seen the truth, and nothing he said could change it. "It's too late for that, Tom. I'm done. I need to protect myself and our daughter." I walked away from him, my heart heavy but resolute. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living a lie. And in that moment, I realized that no matter how much it hurt, I was finally free. The days following my confrontation with Tom were filled with a strange combination of numbness and clarity. The shock had worn off, but the pain was still there, deep in my chest, like a constant weight I couldn't shake off. I had made my decision, but now the reality of it all was setting in. I wasn't just walking away from him, I was walking away from the life we had built together, from everything I thought was true. Tom tried to reach out to me, of course. He called, sent texts, even came home early a couple of times trying to talk to me, to apologize. But his words meant nothing to me anymore. They were empty, meaningless. Because I knew the truth. His apologies weren't for the right reasons. They were for himself, for the life he was losing. I had been a part of that life, and it wasn't until he saw it slipping away that he truly realized what he had done. But it was too late. I had spent so much of my life trying to make things work, trying to please him, trying to fix what was broken between us. But now, I realized that I couldn't fix it. Not anymore. I couldn't keep trying to rebuild a relationship that had been built on lies. I had to let go of the man I thought I knew, the man I had loved and trusted, and face the truth that the person I had spent so many years with was gone. The man I had married wasn't the same person anymore. He had changed, and not for the better. As I navigated through the days without him, I found myself rediscovering parts of me that I had forgotten. I was no longer just a wife or a mother. I was me. The person who had always put everyone else first was now finally taking care of herself. And it felt good, in a way I hadn't experienced in years. But it wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when I second-guessed my decision. What if I had overreacted? What if I was being too harsh? The thought of breaking up our family, of possibly losing time with my daughter, haunted me. But then I would remember the way he had looked at me that night, the coldness in his eyes, and the way he had dismissed me like I didn't matter. And I would remember the slap, and how it had shattered everything. I started seeing a therapist, trying to process everything and heal from the emotional trauma. Every session brought new insights, new realizations about myself, my marriage, and what I needed to move forward. I began to see that I wasn't just leaving him, I was choosing myself. And that was something I had forgotten to do for a long time. I was rebuilding my sense of self, piece by piece. Tom had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was prepared to face whatever came next. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. And though I couldn't undo the past, I could shape the future. It was mine to create, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. As I sat alone in the quiet of the house, I realized that this was the beginning of something new. It wouldn't be without challenges, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had faced the truth, and now I was free. Free to start over. Free to be the woman I was always meant to be. And for the first time in months, I felt a small spark of hope flickering in the darkness. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me moving forward. Because no matter how painful the journey had been, I knew that I was stronger now, and nothing would ever take that away from me.